Good morning, everybody. It's Sean Spicer here in Milwaukee. In fact, I think all of us are here in Milwaukee. We are technically in different rooms, but I think we're probably about 3 blocks apart from each other. We got a busy day ahead of us. As promised, our goal today is to bring you some really unique insight into what's going down today. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we'll do it tomorrow. Mark Halperin, unbelievable seasoned journalist that covered countless campaigns. And I will say this because Mark won't say it for himself, but I've been doing this for 30 years. I've never seen anybody that's as sourced and knows what's going on inside these campaigns than Mark. So I look forward to his telling us what the campaigns are saying. And obviously Governor Scott Walker, 2-time governor of this great state, but also one of the top presidential candidates in 2015 who was on that stage. He knows what it's like to prepare. And to take it even a step further, this cycle, he's leading the YAF, the Young America's Foundation, and they are a co-sponsor of this debate. So, I mean, I don't know how many angles we've got this thing covered, but I don't think it's close. Mark, let me just kick it over to you and just kind of lay the land for us. What are you hearing from the campaigns as we head into these final few hours?
I think there's 4 big dynamics right now, and we've just added a 5th. One is so much pressure on Governor DeSantis. There's just a ton of pressure on him, and he's got one of the best debate coaches in the country working with him. But he's got to be bigger than everybody on that stage.
Brett O'Donnell's his name, right? And
Brett O'Donnell.
Yeah,
he's
been
brought in relatively late, and DeSantis has gotten better on the stump lately. But how good can he be tonight in a format where, are the moderators going to let him have more time than everybody else? Number one. Number two, Governor Christie. I ran into him last night. He knows what he's doing. He's going to be super aggressive. How much the moderators tee him up? I think they'll tee him up a lot because I think he's the best show on the stage, and they need a good show. 3 is Vivek. Vivek comes in here hot. Obviously, comes in here as a target. He's made a ton of mistakes. He makes tons of mistakes. His supporters don't care, but people are acting to some extent like he's at 30 in the polls. He's not. He's not in double digits. But I want to see how he does and how much pressure he's under. 4 is Trump. Donald Trump isn't here. His people are here in force. They have a very sophisticated plan to dominate this. They took a bunch of reporters out to dinner last night. They're a presence on the street. The Tucker interview is going to unfurl during the debate. They really want to dominate, even without a candidate here. And then last, CNN is reporting Governor Burgum has gone to the emergency room in after a pickup basketball accident. Obviously, I wish him the best and hope he gets better. I thought he was actually going to be a kind of a quiet force tonight. If he's not on the stage, it's bad for him. I don't think it affects things overall. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, luckily, I'm glad you said it. I don't mean to say pick up basketball game, but I would assume he tripped or something like that. We'll know more later, but that's a lot different than, him having a heart attack or something in the hospital. Because I think wearing a bandage or something, and again, all these candidates, I feel like we've got Vivek playing tennis without a shirt, Robert doing push-ups. Everybody's trying to show how physical they are.
Yeah. It's also possible they took him to the emergency room with a bad cut or a broken bone, just because, that's what you do. If you don't live in a certain city, you get hurt. You maybe just first instincts go to the emergency room. Governor, I wanted to ask you about Governor Christie, who you know well. Do you agree with me that if he comes in here prepared, and he is, and confident and experienced, given what he did to Marco Rubio, do you agree with me that he's potentially the story of the night, whether he takes on Trump, whether he takes on Vivek, whether he takes on Governor DeSantis?
Yeah, he is a show in and of himself. I think there's no doubt about that. I said that to a couple of reporters yesterday who were asking about it. Who's going to be the most entertaining? I think you're dead on right. It's Chris Christie. And I think, unlike of late, where he's been focused on President Trump, he'll still talk about that. But I would not be surprised at all if he went after Governor DeSantis, and maybe to a certain extent, Vivek, if he's starting to peak at some point during the debate. I think he'd be equally as entertaining, even though, as you mentioned, there have been within some of the fact checkers some pushback on that. I think the audience, though, those that love him are already going to love him more, and those that haven't heard from him are going to be really, truly amazed because he's brilliant. Whether you agree with everything or every angle he's pushing. And I think a number of us are concerned about some of the things he said about Israel of late. There's some other issues. Just to show you how unpredictable it is, there's a drone going by right now here in the Pfizer Forum. So it shows you, just like the debate stage, everything is unpredictable here. But I think he could have a really significant effect on DeSantis. Now, the flip side to that is, if DeSantis is learned from watching my mistakes in the past, and that is, be prepared to adapt to the situation. Don't have pre-rehearsed lines. really respond to the moment and be bold and really grab people's attention. I actually think in some ways, Christie could help DeSantis in the sense that if Christie comes out and starts attacking, if DeSantis gets right back in his face and pushes back on him, I actually think that moment could actually help him.
I agree. Look, we know.
Can I just hold on, Mark? Governor, you said my mistakes. Like, what? Just give me an example. Like, what was something that you look back on and say, I should have taken advantage of this, or I shouldn't have done that? Because I think that to me is always fascinating. What when you say mistakes, what do you mean?
Well, in terms of when you say good debate coach, that's a great thing. But sometimes you can get overcoached. And I think I was overcoached in the sense that I came in, they said, keep your answers tight, always revert back to your record. It doesn't hurt to remind people of your record, but take whatever time you want. If you grab people's attention, if you're present in that question, for example, on Cleveland, I had a minute, I think was the time as they do here. I think I finished up on average somewhere between 30 and 45 seconds. I was so focused on not going over time, playing by the rules, whereas Donald Trump didn't care about the rules. He came in and did whatever he wanted. And the moderators, when they tried to rein him in, they made it even bigger, even more attention on him. And I'm not saying DeSantis has to do that, but I think if someone, Mark, your point about Christie getting worked up, he will be. That's his MO. That's what Chris, a friend of mine, he's done that for years. But I think if DeSantis can show a little emotion and react to that, that could actually help him.
But let me ask you both about that, because again, I think that's the critical kind of matchup. In all likelihood, we know what Christie will come after DeSantis for. Too much like Trump, too extreme, but not a good people person. If you're DeSantis, what do you come back and hit Christie on if you want to try to win the confrontation, that gladiatorial moment? Where do you hit him on?
Oh, I think you push back and say, you take a shot at Chris and say, hey, this is just an opportunity for you. You're not really running for president. You're running for your next TV contract. You're running for your next book deal. I'm actually running to be president of the United States. Right. I care about this. I'm passionate about this. And if I'm president, boom, 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 this is what I'm going to do. It gives them a great opening to come, to show some emotion. Remember, this is not a primary debate, but I still remember that moment as a young person watching Dukakis when he was asked about if his wife had been raped, would he support the death penalty? And he gave this bland, blah notion. I don't care where you stand on that issue. Every American, even those opposed to the death penalty, was like, are you kidding me? Even those against the death penalty said, I would want to go through, grab him and kill him myself, which is precisely why you don't have the death penalty as an option. That might have been an answer that showed some emotion. DeSantis has got to show emotion, and reacting to Christie might be just the way to do it.
Yeah,
look,
Go ahead, Sean. I want to ask something.
Just to dovetail this, I think here's the deal. The expectation bar for DeSantis is so low. The stories are that his campaign's in disarray. The donors are walking away from him. If I were him, I'd find a way to come out tonight, punch something in the face, look like I got the message. I'm willing to fight. I want to take on. I agree with the governor. I'd come out and say, Chris, that's great. I'm sure CNN will appreciate this when you get your contract with them. But second of all, and I heard this at the Iowa contest, and I from the state chairman, which is, Chris, you love to talk about Donald Trump ducking things. Where are you in Iowa? You've ducked Iowa. Why weren't you? Well, I think the governor's right. Find two very specific things that he can't respond to and go after, because DeSantis is strong going after the media. Christie seems more of a media creature. So that's my 2 cents.
I want to ask Sean, I want to ask you about something, but just to button up that, the worry I would have if I were DeSantis is Christie hits him. He finds his voice the way you two are suggesting and hits him back. I think the moderators then let the thing go on, and maybe DeSantis can win a 2-round fight, but it's hard to beat Christie in a 6-round fight, which is I think what would happen. Sean, you know more about the interplay between the RNC and the Fox and the debates, the media sponsor, than anybody probably. And we could spend 2 hours talking about what's going on here, because for us, it's a fascinating topic. It's this weird hybrid. They're sort of both hosts. Like when I wanted to get credentialed for the debate, I didn't know if I was supposed to ask the RNC or want to ask Fox, right? So my question's about the audience in the room, right? Obviously, most of those people in the room are probably for Trump because they're in the Republican Party. Is the room, do you think, going to be pro-Trump? Is it going to be pro-fight? What's it going to be? How do you get the audience in the room to cheer, which obviously makes the TV thing matter a lot?
So that's going to be a great thing to know. And Governor Walker knows this. So what we did is when we took control in 2015, the first debate was in Cleveland, we figured out the size of the audience, right? Because even though the Fiserv is big, just as the arena in Cleveland was big, you're only putting a X amount in for seats and security.
Let me stop you for a second. Do either of you know how many people are in the hall? How many people in that audience? Anybody know?
It's probably about 6,000. They haven't verified exactly the amount, but
6,000,
I know, for example,
right?
Our group has about 2 sections alone, and that's about 600. And so it's going to be people on the floor.
Just to say, with 6,000 people, regardless of how many times Brett and Martha admonish people to be quiet, that is going to be a hooting and hollering audience. And because we're in Milwaukee and there's 50 bars within 50 feet of the arena, there's going to be hooting and hollering.
There's 50.
Sean,
I only got to 49. Anyway, I will say this. This is where this is going to be the point that you're bringing up matters. So the way that we ran it was we went through all the candidates and we allocated, each got like 150. Then the RNC got like 150. Fox wanted some for their corporate, for advertisers and friends of the network. And so you knew it was somewhat balanced. But at the and everybody used them. I mean, so it wasn't like, but this time to Governor Walker's point, you got YAF, how many, what's that? A few hundred students. You don't know where they come down, and they're probably more interested in the lines and what's happening than maybe the diehards that are there for one candidate or another. But I think that the reaction for that audience is going to be amazing. You remember Donald Trump really went after Rosie O'Donnell and everybody thought it was hysterical. So I think that how the audience plays is another X factor that I am now writing down.
But think about it. Say Nikki Haley hits Ramaswamy on Israel. Say Christie hits DeSantis for supporting Trump. Say Pence hits whoever. Like what do you if you were thinking about being a candidate, what gets the audience on your side? Does hitting Trump possibly get the audience on Christie's side, or does that make him lose the crowd?
The one thing that I'll say hold on, I'm sorry, Governor. The one thing that we haven't mentioned is that's a winner is Biden. The one, if I were coaching somebody today, I'd say, you know what, guys, the one thing, blah, 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 is Joe Biden, da, 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 da.
Right.
The DNC is here in Milwaukee, but you know where Joe Biden isn't? He hasn't been at the border. It took him a week to get down to Maui. I'm going to be the president. Blah, 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 blah,
so
blah.
auditioning to be the person who can best hit Biden.
I think so.
And you're right. It is an interesting dynamic. Again, having been on that stage in Cleveland 8 years ago, when you have an arena versus the next debate, this time as it was 8 years ago, was at the Reagan Presidential Library. That was a more intimate setting. That was with the media. That was with the people in the audience. Were a few supporters of the library, but it was mainly with media and family and campaign folks. Whereas here, it's like being at a mini convention. This is a big crowd. And I remember at Cleveland, even coming out, it was a little overwhelming as a candidate because you're not really at a debate like most of us have been at debates, whether you're a governor or a senator, whomever, where you kind of come out and it's mainly a media studio. Here, it's like, you're like at a sporting event. And so and no matter how many times they tell people to be, respectful and quiet, to your point, both of you, if they come out and make a few blows, they're going to be people who like that and respond. The key, though, is how do you balance that between stirring the crowd up to create a little attention without looking crazy on TV to the millions of people watching?
Governor, when you did your debates, when you ran, did you come to the spin room after the debate?
I did, and it was mainly because I felt like I had not done enough. As I mentioned, didn't take the full use of the time, hadn't been as aggressive as I like. So I went to the spin room. If their campaign feels like they, had a knockout blow during the debate, I don't think they come to the spin room. I think they let that stand. So I think the people
drop the mic and leave.
Right. Get out of there. If you still think you had something you left, you're going to be in the spin room.
One thing that I got asked a lot yesterday, Trump's not here. Mark mentioned that the Trump team is here. They're doing a massive bracketing effort. I think there's a little bit of controversy because some of his surrogates wanted to get in to the spin room. I get it. He has a right to be in Milwaukee, his team. Absolutely. I mean, when I was at the RNC, we bracketed the DNC. We went to their events. But the thing that was interesting to me is I think I'll stand up for Fox for one thing at least, which is if you're not going to show up at the debate, I don't know how you then credential your surrogates for a guy who's not here.
I agree, except of course they found the loophole, which is, you say, hey, Jason Miller's booked on Newsmax, so he gets in. Sean, I want to ask you about that, right?
Also check this out. One little thing that someone on the team pointed out yesterday, Rumble is a co-sponsor. Don Jr. has a show on Rumble. Kimberly Guilfoyle has a show on Rumble.
Right.
And I was like,
of course.
These guys thought of everything.
The loophole's huge. Hey, Sean, just explain briefly what bracketing is, and then I want to ask you about it.
So bracketing is when in this case, the Trump team is coming in and bracketing the other candidates that are here. Broadly, when it comes to the parties, like if the DNC had an event, whether it's a debate or a convention, you come in and you're counter programming. They're trying to talk about why their candidates are great, what they're doing. You're coming in reminding of people of why their record is horrible or how they'll destroy the country or their flip-flops or their hypocrisy. The DNC here has billboards up. By the way, one of the billboards says Joe Biden's top 4 accomplishments is lowering prices. And I'm like, that's
not my sausage plate cost $34 yesterday. Look, the Trump people had dinner with some of the most influential political reporters in America last night. They have a street presence. They got people carrying around signs. They are going to be in the spin room. I predict there's going to be an altercation, maybe even a physical altercation between the Trump surrogates and somebody from one of the other campaigns tonight, because they come in here with a position of strength. Their candidate's up 30 points. He's skipping the debate. You don't do that from a position of weakness. And they're going to be on Twitter during the debate. They're going to try to say this is Ron DeSantis and 7 or so other dwarfs. And it's going to be very difficult for these other candidates to push back on that because the polls drive so much of it. And again, how many people in the RNC? Like 150 members, 160 members, right? How many of them are for Trump?
I bet you 80, 90. I mean, when I say for Trump, they're 100. I mean, I bet you get the number up to 120 if you sort of get what they call the leaners.
Yeah.
But,
So again, this is there'll be some people here obviously support the other candidates. They all got tickets, but the mood unless somebody dominates the debate, unless somebody's just a huge performance, a lot of the framing egged on by the Trump people is going to be, Trump entered this debate, 30 points ahead, and he's still 30 points ahead. And that's, I think, the reason why, if people think they can just be cautious and quote unquote introduce themselves to the country, that's not enough.
So
that's the big difference between a head-to-head debate. A number of the candidates I've talked to this week, a head-to-head debate, when you're a governor, when you're a senator, you have a decent performance. In fact, most of our debates when I was governor, even in the big recall, we said, you don't need to hit it out of the park. You just need to have a steady performance head-to-head.
Exactly.
You let the rest of your campaign take care of it. In a primary debate, normally just in a normal cycle like it was 8 years ago, even more so now because of the lead President Trump has, and this is what I told the candidates, the other ones, I said, you've got to reach through that screen and make your value proposition to every single voter watching. And it can't just be, I'm a good debater or I'm a decent person. A solid performance is not enough. You've got to shake things up and convince them the guy they think has done a fabulous job and deserves 4 more years being president of the United States isn't as good as you would be.
So
that's not easy.
I think that the media, when you talk, it doesn't matter who they are, whether they're even at Fox, this is a ratings exercise for them. They want this to blow up. They want moments. I will tell you this. You guys tell me if you disagree with this, but I think there's 2 basic strategies. The Chris Christie kamikaze strategy, I'm going at Trump, and then the sort of, I might touch some other people, but I'm going to promote myself. I have said all along for the last couple of weeks, I agree with Governor Walker. If you're in a binary choice debate, it's a general election debate or it's mano a mano, that is a different game. This is 8 people. Some of them have to wear name tags for you to know who they are. If you are Chris Christie and you go at Donald Trump, my point is this. Let's say you blow him up and you're unbelievably effective. You don't necessarily become the recipient of that support. So they blow up Trump and then they go, oh, that's a great argument, Governor Christie, which is why I'm going to support Nikki Haley. Whereas if you're at 1 or 2% and you spend your time talking about why you're the best person to take on Biden and that you've got this, you can maybe get to 4 or 5%. But I don't think going after Trump is going to get you from 2 to 4. I think and the media just, they keep asking everyone is, when are you going to take on Trump? And I'm like, that's because what they want. And I don't think people appreciate that's their goal.
Yeah. And the polling
look at the guys who are
that.
Look at the guys so far who have been the most interesting. Vivek is part of the reason why his appeal has grown is because he's exciting, he's dynamic, he's confident, but he's not attacking Donald Trump. He's making the case that people go, yeah, I agree with him. Even if they say, I'm still going to vote for Donald Trump. I like this guy. I'd like to see him succeed. I'd like to see him in the cabinet. I'd like to see him move up. The only other one I've seen who's kind of down that path is Senator Tim Scott. I think Tim Scott, even going on The View was one of those moments where you go, this guy's got some guts. He's willing to do some things, and he's not attacking President Trump either. He could be one of those guys who has a breakthrough moment. For Nikki Haley and Mike Pence, this is a must opportunity for them.
But let me ask you guys both about Tim Scott. Okay, he is the hope for a lot of senators, some who support him publicly, some not. For people who've given up on Ron DeSantis, and we all know there's people in the Stop Trump movement who just think DeSantis has basically had his chance and he's just not have the touch to do it. And they want Tim Scott to do well. He spent a ton of money. Martha McCollum did a really unorthodox thing as a debate moderator on her show yesterday. Back-to-back interviews with Tim Scott and Ramaswamy, which I thought was kind of weird because she was asking him questions that I thought she was going to save for the debate. Tim Scott, he was Tim Scott. But my question to you guys is, like, it doesn't seem to me he's got the personality to do the first thing, which is to like shake things up, to do something bold. He's just going to be Tim Scott. And I just don't think there's any evidence that that's enough.
I think you're right about that, but that's where he's got to come out. And maybe it's not even just the personality or picking a fight. Some of it maybe there's a bold idea that they were talking about proposing. They can't wait for some, prepackaged event. He's got to roll it out, something like this. Something tonight has to happen that gets people's attention.
What's an example? Like announce his running mate? What could he do that would be bold?
No, or even an idea. Say, I'm pushing for a nationwide flat tax, or something bold. Doesn't have that, but you're probably right about that, Mark. But it's got to be something, that and then he's got to explain what that means. But
yeah,
I don't know if it's that, but it's something that nobody else has been talking about thus far.
Sean, if you 999 exactly. But it's not Tim Scott to do 999.
That's the thing. Look, I just real quick, I want to say this. I think Tim Scott's a great messenger. He's got a great story. People on the grassroots of the Republican Party right now want a fighter. They want someone, and I think that's why Vivek is doing well. He's talking about politics. I think that's why people put their hopes into DeSantis. They want a fighter. They want someone who is going to wake up and go after the woke world. They're going to take on corporations. They're going to take on the deep state. And getting up there and talking about hope and love is a great message. I love what Tim Scott has done. He's a great messenger for our party. I think he's a fantastic individual. But right now, people want someone who's got so much fire that they're waking up. And he's just, again.
So if you were his advisor and he said, Sean, I got to stand out in this debate. I need to be the story of the debate. I get that. What should I do? What would you tell him to do?
Rip your shirt off, have a big S underneath.
All right, what's the real answer? What's the real answer?
The answer is I would figure out, as Governor Walker said, he's got to have something. I would say you need to be the person that is coming after Joe Biden and say, everyone up here is talking about this and this. Joe Biden has failed us at the border and So day one, because this is where what are the issues that people care about? We want to take on China. We want to take on and close the border and stop illegal immigration. We think fentanyl is a big issue. We think our way of life.
I say with respect and affection, if he does that perfectly, he's still not the story of the debate.
I don't know that he can be. It's not. I mean,
he has to be. He says I must be. What
there's
should
an
he do?
authenticity. But Mark, here's the problem. The thing that everybody loved about Trump was this level of authenticity. And what I've always told candidates since that day is you can't be like Trump. Trump is Trump. You need to be your authentic, true self. I always point to Governor Rick Schneider of Michigan. He called himself one tough nerd. He wasn't trying to be Donald Trump. He was saying inherently, I'm a nerdy, smart guy, and I'm going to lean into the qualities that make me a smart, good person. As opposed to, he wasn't trying to like ride a motorcycle and show that he could do a fitness routine. And he was just saying, I'm going to be the authentic self of me and sell that to people. Tim Scott's got to get up and find something that's part of his id that says, I can sell this, I can own it, and it won't look phony. I mean, Mike Pence the other day, with all due respect, did a gas commercial and everyone said he doesn't you don't look like you know how to pump gas.
Right. If Trump were in this debate, we'd be setting this up by saying it's going to be 2 hours of people trying to like duel with Trump, right? But he's not. So this is such a great opportunity. And yet, my conclusion from this conversation is there, with the exception of Christie, I don't know that there's anybody that, from talking to the campaigns and from listening to their interviews running up to it, I don't see anybody who's got kind of like a breakthrough strategy. Now, maybe they're sitting on it.
We keep talking about tomorrow and what we're going to talk about. There is a narrative out there that says tomorrow we're going to be talking about Fulton County, Georgia, because the president's going to turn himself in tomorrow morning. So I think it's interesting. That's everybody in the media seems to be bought into. No matter what happens tonight, we're going to be going wall to wall in Fulton County, Georgia. Do you guys buy into that, Governor?
Yeah, I think it probably is the case because one, the media can't help themselves. And that's the story that, anything that that Donald Trump's involved with, whether you're on the left or the right, people seem to be obsessed with. So I think that probably is the case. Remember that second debate in 8 years ago at the Reagan Library? The big story going in was that the field was expanded from 10 to 11 because one of the people on the lower card, Carly Fiorina, had actually made it. Well, we knew going into that, the story, no matter what, if she just perked up a little bit, that was going to be part of the story. And sure enough, was part of the big story coming out of it. Some of these are predetermined stories, and I think that's going to be the case with the president.
Let me just tell you, there's a lot more to that story. But you're absolutely right. I'm trying to actually find this thing because you're right. I know people won't be able to see this, but there it is. That's you guys all on the stage at the Reagan Library right before the debate. So you're absolutely right.
I think there's 3 potential stories that are predictable that could happen. They could compete with Donald Trump going to Atlanta. One is Christie eviscerating DeSantis. 2 is Governor DeSantis, having worked with Brett O'Donnell, performs like where people say there was only one president on that stage. I think that's possible. And then 3rd, I think, is probably Ramaswamy. And if whether there's Insta polls or social media chat or conservative pundits say, wow, seeing him on the stage with the others, he really is exceptional and different. And he really is, the future of the party. And that leads him to get some good earned media coverage. But except for those 3 things, I think you're right. The press is sort of conditioned to say snooze fest on to Atlanta.
Can I ask one more thing that I've sort of been intrigued by? I get from a ratings wise, apples and oranges. So I'm not trying to, but do you think that this Tucker interview tonight overshadows, becomes a story, or is it a nothing burger? Mark, you're shaking your head.
It was taped a week ago, number 1. Number 2, reporters, the debate is interesting enough because it's the first one, because it's Wisconsin, because there's some sub themes and interesting. I think the debate's interesting enough. Reporters aren't going to put up a screen and watch Tucker. They'll look at Twitter to see what people are saying about it. Some second tier reporters, or I shouldn't say second tier, but sort of other reporters who aren't assigned to the debate will tweet about it. But I can't imagine it's going to make news. Now, I do wonder about one thing. There's been no leaks about what he said. As far as I know, Tucker hasn't put out anything. But it's interesting. They convinced Tucker to sit on it for a week. Obviously, that was an ironclad agreement. But I'll be curious to see if right before the debate, Tucker doesn't start tweeting out some of the stuff from the interview. That could make a difference. That could get reporters to say, wow, that's bigger news than anything they expect here.
I agree. Hey, Governor, before we go, one last thing. YAF is part of this debate, which I think is really cool and unique. What can you just walk through? What are you guys doing tonight? And what have you been doing? And what's the plan tomorrow? I mean, I just think that this is a really cool aspect that has been added in. So can you just explain what your organization is doing?
Yeah, Young America's Foundation, YF.org. We're out in the plaza. In fact, I'm looking out right now. We've got a massive block party. So not only the 600 students, parents, family members, alumni, and supporters that'll be out there that are part of our seats inside the Fiserv Forum, but the thousands more that'll be coming through will be going through the block party. It was cool yesterday when they were doing the preparations to check out the mics for each of the candidates. Our students were the ones up there filling in for each of the candidates. So that's a memory they'll have forever. And they've been on the panels all week on Fox. But probably the most exciting thing is we taped a few weeks ago at our national conference a number of questions from college students. And Brett Baer and Mark McConnell will be able to use those, obviously at their discretion, depending on the flow. But they've got a number of questions on different topics that'll be coming directly from college students. They taped them so that they knew what they'd be doing, which makes a lot of sense when you're a moderator. But they'll be flipping them up on the board for the candidates to respond to. So we love it not only for the kids that got to answer or ask the questions, but for all the young people and younger voters, not just college, but the 18 to 29-year-olds who unfortunately went too far to the left this last cycle. Hopefully they'll be tuning in and hearing some of their questions being answered.
But you have no idea which ones they might use, right?
No, we gave them a series. They did background checks, as you might expect, to make sure they knew the social media and others out there. But it's really at their discretion and they're topic based.
Well, also, let's face it. I think if you're at a block party all day long around the Fiserv with 50 bars. It's probably better to have those questions taped than
Pre-taped, yeah.
Pre-taped. Anyway, we are at the end of our time here. Real quick, let's run through, Mark, where we're going to be doing this tomorrow again at 9, giving our analysis of what happened, who wins and who loses, going through these checklists to see what those moments were. Mark, tell us where people can follow you and get more information.
Yep. 9 Eastern time again. And just to be clear, Sean and I are not being hyperbolic when we say there are 50 bars within about 50 feet of the arena. So this place was built, this arena was built for the Bucks and for people to be able to party before and after the games. If you want to get my daily concierge coverage of the campaign, you can go to walkingduck.com/Mark and read about what's included.
Yeah. And if you haven't read it, it is like reading the future sometimes. It's like buying lottery tickets where you know the numbers. Mark tells everyone what the candidates are doing and why. Governor Walker, tell us a little bit about how we can get involved in what you're doing and follow.
Yeah, we're training the next generation of leaders in the fight for freedom. You can visit us at yaf.org or go to our YouTube site, which now has more than 1 billion views, at YAF TV, YAF TV, 1.5 million subscribers, 1 billion views. And by the way, per those bars, I'm happy to tell you that I was governor when we built this place. And it's one of the few, if only, NBA facilities in the nation that was built without a tax increase. So we actually built it successfully in a public-private partnership and didn't raise a tax to do it.
Yeah,
so I'll raise a beer to that tonight.
I was going to say, if you drink that much beer in that area, I'm sure you can probably get the
it
tax.
pays for it off the sales tax.
All right. Well, again, as everyone said, look, if you're watching this live, it will be up a little later, so you can share it with folks, get it around. Tomorrow, we will be back here 9 a.m. Eastern time, 8 a.m. Central. We will be taking some questions. So if you go to my locals page, seanspicer.locals.com, and the aforementioned page is the other place, sign up to be part of this, and maybe your question will get asked and answered. If you are following this right now on YouTube, Sean M. Spicer, you can go to Apple Podcasts. The Sean Spicer Show has everything that you need to know about where to follow us, where to subscribe. And I'm only trying to get like a third of what YAF has. I just need like 500 million and a few thousand, a couple 100 million views and a million subscribers. So I'm in catch up and I appreciate everyone. Gentlemen, we're going to be back here tomorrow. We're going to have a fun night in Milwaukee. Thank you for your expert analysis, and we'll see you back.
Have a great day. See everybody tomorrow morning.
See you then.
Stay cool.